So I was originally planning to give my thoughts and opinions about Skarner after his rework, but with the recent devlog stirring up discussion about him in the community again, I figured now's as good a time as any. I realize that will probably date the video even harder in hindsight, but I want to give my 2 cents on the direction the Brackern lore is heading. I'll just say it outright. I think this has the potential to be a drastic improvement. Now, I say this with a degree of uncertainty because the new lore isn't actually out yet at the time of this recording, so there's still a very real chance Riot could mess it up. That being said, what they've shared so far has promise, so fingers crossed. But for those who might be slightly out of the loop, let me catch you up to speed. In Riot's recent devlog on the subject, they went over some of the planned changes for Skarner's VGU, their reasons behind those changes, and the direction they've settled on for the new lore. In this iteration of Skarner's backstory, the Brackern are a race of ancient giant scorpions who live in the jungles of Kamungu. They're effectively the first beings to master earth magic, and taught the discipline to humans when they formed Ishtal, not unlike the badger moles teaching earthbending in Avatar. While they still have ties to the earth, the crystal theme specifically is going away, meaning that the Brackern are most likely not going to be the source of hex crystals going forward. This is where fans seem to be the most divided. Some people appear to agree with the change, while others dislike it. As I stated before, I'm in the former camp, and I'd like to share why. See, even as far back as the very first Skarner bio, the Brackern were envisioned to be this ancient, wise race that held the power to store their life essence in crystals. Just these super chill, perfect, peaceful creatures who were completely averse to conflict. They were functionally immortal because they could pass on all their thoughts, memories, and wisdom to their next of kin through their soul crystals. The ideal sapient race, really. But then when an actual war broke out, the Brackern all hid themselves deep underground for ages until miners eventually dug them up on accident. Skarner lashed out in an effort to defend his kin, but was eventually calmed when the summoners approached to reassure him they had no ill intentions. After seeing what the League was trying to do and help mediate the conflict in the aftermath of the Rune Wars, Skarner agreed to become a champion for them, hoping to help make the world a peaceful place for his kind to resurface to when their long hibernation finally ended. Cut forward to after the retcon, and a lot of the story beats are the same, but now the summoners are gone. The Brackern hid themselves underground just like before, but this time they were mined up by humans from Piltover, who saw the Brackern crystals as nothing more than a potential energy source filled with arcane power. The humans, who are actually incapable of knowing the Brackern crystals are alive, took these gems back to Piltover where they would eventually become the foundation for Hex Tech. There was no malice or ill intent involved, it's just that humans can't perceive the Brackern's language as anything more than a strange humming, because, well, that's what it is to our ears. Skarner senses his people's distress and emerges to try and help them. But his short story, well, it doesn't really show him doing a very good job, in my opinion. He tries to reason with the humans by singing in their minds, hoping that by doing so they'll be connected to the world's song, or whatever, as the Brackern are. He hopes that this will cause the humans to sense the pain and anguish they're causing to his people. It's not clear if this actually works at all, but the humans just laugh and start attacking Skarner because I guess we're just meant to infer that these people are completely apathetic. Anyways, Skarner kills all but one of them to return to Piltover with this song still in her head, because I guess he thinks it'll work a second time? Look, I'm gonna be honest, I've always found this to be a little bit pretentious. The story effectively amounts to little more than humans are bad and dumb and they're killing an entire race out of greed and ignorance. I get what the writers are trying to do here. It's all meant to be an analogy for how humans recklessly destroy the Earth's resources for short-term profit. But the execution feels kind of tactless. Humans, unlike the Brackern, are not basically a hive mind. We don't all share the same thoughts, feelings, views, and opinions. Skarner's story seems to be implying that an entire group of people completely lacks empathy, so much so that their response to stop killing my race is to just laugh, even when they are literally made to feel the suffering of the Brackern. When that fails, Skarner just kills all the humans save one. Yes, it was self-defense in this case, but I'm not sure I care too much for what the story insinuates. Am I reading too much into this? Probably, if I'm being real. But Riot is no stranger to unfortunate implications. In fact, they originally had to rewrite Seraphine's bio because of such implications. See, Seraphine is an empath, someone with the power to feel the emotions of other living beings. When she was a child, this power caused her a great deal of anguish, due to the fact that she was constantly being bombarded by the thoughts and feelings of everyone around her. Seraphine had to wear a pair of special dampeners to block these thoughts and feelings out, and even then seldom went outside. That is, until her parents got hold of a Brackern crystal, or hex crystal as they're known in Piltover, and Seraphine was able to hear and communicate with it. The Brackern taught her about their history and culture, as well as the tragic fate that led them to becoming the power source for Piltovans. The Brackern also taught Seraphine how to better control her powers. And what does she do with this? Turns the dampener into an amplifier by using the Brackern as a power source, so that she can spread her message of love and unity via singing. The intent, of course, is that the Brackern willingly went along with this because it admired Seraphine's goal, and Seraphine's amplifier somehow didn't hurt it like most hex tech. But the implications were rather unfortunate to say the least. It's because of this that Riot had to alter Seraphine's backstory so that she can't actually directly commune with the Brackern, and only has the faintest inkling that the crystal is alive. That way, she doesn't have to feel guilty about using a living thing as a power source because she doesn't know. And really, that's the thing. Most Piltovans and Zonites don't know the truth about Hextech. Even the Pharaohs clan, who are in charge of manufacturing and refining hex crystals for use, are never shown to actually know the real truth about them. When Seraphine was introduced, they sort of tried to imply that she would be the one to help spread the word about the Brackern, but that wound up being overshadowed by her desire to unite the people of both cities and, end the whole class division between them. In my opinion, that's a better direction for her character in general, but it left the Brackern in a rather unfortunate position. Not that it really matters, because that plotline was never going to be resolved anyway. Let's be honest, if the Brackern were ever well and truly saved, that would probably mean the end of Hextech as a whole. Any champions or characters that use Hextech would have to reconcile with the fact that they're effectively torturing a living entity every time they do so. So several characters would likely just end up losing their powers, and an entire region would lose its aesthetic. Yes, they do mention that synthetic hex crystals are a thing, but that kind of defeats the whole moral dilemma of the Brackern situation, doesn't it? Especially considering that the synthetic crystals are nowhere near as powerful and nowhere near as long-lasting. In fact, the direction that they're currently heading with the Brackern, by moving them to Ishtal, feels like it has the potential to explore their core conflict even better. We know that Piltover is mining and logging in the jungle, which would no doubt put the Brackern in danger, but they're not the only ones this time. All the indigenous people of the jungle have a common enemy in this version. This approach feels like it better illustrates the themes of over-industrialization and colonization. Of course, knowing Riot's history with handling complex topics, it's still up in the air how tactfully this will be handled. But at least this feels like a plot that can actually progress, rather than just remaining forever stagnant. As it stands, I think that just making hex crystals magically infused gems that aren't alive is the smart way to go here. Having the Brackern be their own thing in Ishtal offers up way more avenues for exploration, including the possibility of making new Brackern characters later down the line. Since Skarner is literally the only rep for his entire species. Even the trolls have gotten more lore and attention in the narrative at this point. You could easily just say that Piltovens are mining hex crystals from Brackern territory and still have a similar dynamic. Assuming it's well handled, I see this as an absolute win. But what do you all think? Are you glad about this change, or do you still think there's a way the Hex Crystal plotline could have worked as it was? Leave your thoughts and comments down below, and I'll see you all next time.